my channel. I am Achie, and thank you so much for joining me. So for today's video, I wanted to share a little bit about my pregnancy as well as birth story. As I mentioned in my first video, and if you have not had a chance to watch it, I will link it below. I mentioned that I have a 2-year-old. I am 35 years old. I will be 36. Wait, no, I will not be 36. I'll be 37. I'll totally be 37 in September. I will not be 36. So I have a 2-year-old. He just turned 2. I'm 36. I will be 37 in a couple of months. My husband and I have been married for 8 years, which means that we were married for 6 years before we had a baby, right? And it was not a planned pregnancy. It was a surprise. I actually thought we weren't going to have kids. And I think he kind of did too. We always said we may not have kids. And we just decided that we liked our traveling life and the freedom that we had. And then, we ended up pregnant. But it was a total blessing. And children, if you don't have children, or if you're pregnant, or if you desire to be pregnant, children are complete and utter blessings. They are, hard work. Can be a challenge, but they are blessings, and everything's totally worth it. So I'm not going to go into too many details about my pregnancy because I'm not going to make this video super long. Because again, if you watch my first video, you would see that I am trying to make I will make my videos between 5 and 10 minutes long. So 10 minutes will be my max. So if I go over 10 minutes, I'm just going to cut the video and make a part 2. So had a surprise pregnancy. Once I got over the surprise, everything went well. My first trimester was fine. My second trimester was fine. My third trimester, I would say the biggest challenge for my third trimester was just my body physically preparing for a baby to pass through. So I literally would feel my hips spreading, my pelvic bones spreading. I remember days where I would feel it spreading. The minute I got pregnant, I was no longer able to sit on our couch. So I absolutely hated our couch from the moment I became pregnant. I only could sit comfortably on our bed or on a medicine ball. Those were the only 2 things I could sit comfortably on. I also did okay on our dining room table, but the 2 preferences were the bed and the medicine ball. That was it. My third trimester was really challenging. The medicine ball was the preferred method because, when you get heavy and your body's aching, I would lay on my side on the bed, and it just didn't feel good. I couldn't lay on my back that far along in my pregnancy. The baby only preferred a certain side. It was just, that third trimester was very challenging for me. But up until then, everything was fine. I was still working. I was still busy doing the things, running errands, just doing life regularly. And I will say that I did some self-care things that helped me get through as well. And I'll share that on another video. But when it came time for me to give birth, I actually was scheduled to have a home birth. So I had a midwife, and I just wanted, my personal preference. I wanted to be in the comfort of my home. I wanted to be in our bathtub. I just wanted to be just a very intimate setting in our home having the baby. Well, I went through birthing classes, of course, and I had a doula as well as a midwife, obviously. And the doula who was leading the birthing class, she would say, have your birth plan, but don't be glued to it. And me being a very determined person, in my mind, I'm like, no, honey, what I am imagining is going to happen is exactly what's going to happen. And no, there's no room for anything else. This is what's happening. But then as time went on, I'm like, Achie, you really need to rethink this. What happens if the plans change? Are you okay with that? I did not want to have the baby in the hospital. And again, this is a very personal preference. I mean, I have friends who've done both. I've had friends who had babies in hospitals. I've had friends who had babies in birthing centers. And I had friends who've had babies at home. Several babies at home. So I know that any method you choose could work for you. Anyhow, I purchased everything. I had everything that I needed for my home birth. And I was so excited to see his little bitty hat that they sent with the package and all the female items you needed just to make sure you were healing properly. And it was just an amazing experience purchasing these things. And what happened is that my water broke. And it's fine that my water broke. This was 2 weeks early. So my baby was due on August the 8th. And 2 weeks prior, my water broke. And it wasn't like a big splash or anything. It was almost like, and just as a disclaimer, I'm talking about birth. So I'm going to be mentioning some things that may be a little sensitive. So just beware of that. But it was almost like I peed on myself. That's really what it was like. You know, when you're pregnant and like, especially when you're far along, you laugh and you might pee a little bit. I remember I used to hear that and I would laugh so much. I would just laugh like, yeah, right. That's not really the truth, but totally the truth. So I'm thinking, okay, Achie, maybe, you know, it's about that time. Maybe you just peed on yourself a little bit. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, no big deal. But it's in the middle of the night. I'm at like 2 o'clock in the morning, totally nesting. I'm like folding clothes. I'm cleaning up. My husband's in the bed asleep. I'm like, I don't know what it is. It's no big deal. So I had a panty liner on. I'm like, it's fine. The little bit of pee is just going to be on the panty liner. It's going to be totally fine. Well, then I felt it again. I'm like, wait a minute. That's a little bit more. And I'm not laughing. I'm in here by myself watching Judge Judy. Like, that was my thing. I watched Judge Judy every single day on demand, sometimes several times a day. Anyways, so I'm like, I don't know what's happening. And then I got up and like more gushed out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think this is my water breaking. What the heck is about to happen? Am I about to go into labor? I had zero contractions. Zero contractions. So I'm like, okay. So then I wake my husband up. I'm like, honey, I think we may be having the baby soon. He's like, how do you feel? I'm like, I feel perfectly fine. My water broke. No big deal. Everything's wonderful. I said, but you may need to go to the store to get me some Depends, because this little panty liner isn't doing it. So I'm going to need some Depends pads to catch this fluid that's coming out. And you know, when you watch the movies, you just think that you're just going to have this big gush of water that comes out, and you know, it's going to be, then you're going to go into these perfect labor pains and you're going to push a couple times. And listen, it was nothing like that. To make a long story short and to skip forward a little bit, I did not go into active labor at all, actually, until I ended up being transferred to the hospital. My midwife was like, okay, Achie, by law, if you are not in active labor within 24 hours, you have to get transferred to the hospital, because it becomes a safety issue. Because, you know, now the baby is exposed. He doesn't have that fluid covering him. Like, it's leaking out. That's what protects him. Like, we have to go to the hospital. And I started having some contractions, but it wasn't active labor. I'm like, these are contractions. She's like, they're contractions, but it's not active labor. So we had a talk. She prayed with me, because she knows, you know, how I believe in prayer and just how I needed some peace about it, you know? And I said, okay. She said, we have to do what's best for the baby. We can't just do what's best for what you want.